Well, you know, it's a shocking day today in the news because we're finding out more federal judges, district judges, local judges, judges that work with Democrats are all piling in to try to block Trump's agenda. And it's kind of scary because we have more than 120 lawsuits filed against the administration and 15 nationwide injunctions in the last 30 days. Well, the left is going to use lawfare, and they actually think that the Supreme Court's getting weak, and they might be able to win the cases there. This is the time to pray, man, like never before. If it stresses you out, wait till you read the Kennedy files. We're going to talk about it today, the release of the Kennedy information. And, you know, I had Doc Darcy on earlier this week. I like to focus on the Bible, I like to focus on health, I like to focus on other things than what's going on in the Middle East and in the news. But I'm telling you something, we're finding out there is technology that is producing results that helps people live younger and live stronger and last longer. Where there's literally a technology to reactivate the body's self-repair system. Your body, think about it, wasn't designed to die. It was actually supposed to live. It's sin that came in. And then, boom, the principle of degeneration broke in. Well, if you can reverse degeneration, you can actually see the body repairing itself. I want you to find out about this. Level10matrix.com. You'll see the reason why we have people with these remarkable testimonies, because they've done what I'm recommending you do. Call 800-361-2270 or just write the word matrix down on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll send you information on this. I think there's something happening in the area of health and wellness that is almost like counteracting the deterioration that is going on in the human condition. Find out for yourself. You'll be so glad you did. Stronger, last longer, be healthier. It's the real deal. Level 10 Matrix. Now, let's get into the battle of federal district court judges against the President of the United States. Now, you know, Trump is calling for the impeachment of U.S. judges, of the judge over the migrant flights. This is... Of course, the White House ignored the judge's order to turn back the deportation flights. They're saying, well, it already left and it's too late. Something's happening right now that I think we need to understand. Gary Bauer, I follow him on he gives me, get these emails. And so sometimes there's something in there that needs to be shared. I want to give this to you right now. There are nearly 700 federal district court judges across the country. Barack Obama and Joe Biden held the White House for 12 of the last 16 years. They appointed 72% of the federal district court judges. Those are left-wing federal district court judges. Now, a district court judge doesn't have the same jurisdiction as higher judges. Those left-wing rogue radicals are routinely using nationwide restraining orders against the executive office of the United States, the president. For example, Obama only faced 12 nationwide injunctions during his 8 years in office. Biden had 14 injunctions in 4 years. But Donald Trump, in his first 60 days, in the first Trump term, saw 64 judicial injunctions against his agenda. And the left's lawfare against Trump's second term is off to a blistering start with more than 120 lawsuits that have been filed against the administration and 15 nationwide injunctions against his orders just in the last 30 days. So the obvious tactic of the left is to cripple the Trump administration. They can't do it with legislation. They can't do it in other ways, so they're going to try to prevent you from getting what you voted for by using activist judges. So the Supreme Court alone can rein this in. The Supreme Court alone. And I'm worried about Justice Roberts. I'm worried about Amy. I'm worried if we have Supreme Court judges that aren't under pressure in Washington to move to the left. And let's just be aware that the only tactic they've got now is judicial activism. So we have to. Justice Roberts has got to get his court in order. He's got to get that together. All right, so Chelsea, the courts are hot right now, and if it isn't trying to remove activist judges, what else is happening?
Did you see the stuff with the Autopen and Joe Biden? How they're basically saying, well, everything is probably null and void, all those pardons he did, because the assumption is that the staff just used an Autopen to sign all of those pardons and everything. So they're trying to bring that stuff in front of the court. If you guys bring up Asset 2, Donald Trump's response to Biden's Autopen allegations.
So he's saying there that the pardons that Sleepy Joe gave to the Unselect Committee of political thugs, I love how he's branding us already. It's not the Select Committee, it's the Unselect Committee of political thugs, and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, of no further force or effect because of the fact they were done by Autopen. Now that's, folks, that's kind of wild, because what he's saying is, I mean, this is like one news cycle after another. He's dropping bombs. He's basically saying that he wants to have Schiff and all of the other actors who lied and were doing performative art and drama out there. Now, remember something. They were out there making the case. They even had a Hollywood producer come out to help produce the January 6th committee hearings, and then they destroyed evidence that was contrary to the narrative they were pushing because they wanted to crush Trump as the insurrectionist, and the American people ho-hummed and said, we don't believe it. And a whole lot of innocent people got locked up, set free by Trump. They deleted all the evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me, Trump says. You know what he's telling? He's saying Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. It's like David said to Solomon, you're a wise man, you know what to do. And what that means is deal with this injustice. So I'm wondering if I got a segment here of Mike Davis with Steve Bannon. Give us some wisdom here, Mike Davis. Let's hear about these pardons and what the president's actual scope of capacity is.
Talk to me about the pardons. President Trump he's dropping neutron bombs right now. On the pardons, he said, hey, you did it by Autopen. You're in the Bahamas. Therefore, I looked at the law. It doesn't matter. None of the pardons all the pardons for J6 and for Fauci, those last day pardons, are null and void, are they not? According to the President of the United States, the chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer of these United States, Mike Davis?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but let's just put it this way. They use the Autopen on the pardons, right? That does not necessarily make the pardons void. What would make the pardons void is if they use the Autopen on the pardons and President Biden didn't know they did it, or it's against President Biden's will. So if he didn't know he's pardoning someone, or he said not to pardon someone and they pardon them anyway, those are clearly void. Look, politicians use Autopens all the time. President Trump has used them. Every prior president has used them. It's the issue is are they using the Autopen without the president's approval, without his knowledge, against his will? And it sounds like in this instance, President Biden was asked about these pardons and he has no clue that these pardons happened. It sounds like it wasn't with his knowledge and with his consent. And so therefore, there is a strong case that these are not valid pardons.
Now, of course, all that President Biden needs to do is to, make a statement, I guess. And even better, I think he should make it live. He should make it in video. He should make it so that someone didn't write it with an Autopen. And he needs to say, hey, I was fully cognizant and aware of what I was doing. Of course, I was sitting right there. They did the Autopen thing, but I knew what I was doing. And here's the list of all the names that I pardoned so that Trump couldn't go after him. Well, that's all he has to do. But what if he can't do that? What if he has to be, and I don't know how this works, but what if he has to be put in a position where he could handle the inquiry? Kind of like Reagan had to go before the Senate and discuss Iran-Contra and say, who were you with when this happened? You recall the date that this happened and who was with you and what was your rationale for doing this? And if he can't create a compelling statement, then it creates a reasonable doubt that he actually authorized this. So What does Matt Walsh say about this Autopen? I know we're gonna push this a little further than just the pardons. Go ahead, Matt.
President Trump said early Monday that he was avoiding all the last-minute pardons from President Joe Biden. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, because of the fact that they were done by Autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them.
So it's not my decision. That'll be up to a court. But I would say that they're null and void, because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place. And somebody was using an Autopen to sign off and to give pardons. And they gave pardons with an Autopen. I don't think Biden knew anything about it. And what they did is they deleted and destroyed all of the information that took them over a year to get.
If we are all now finally admitting that Biden had dementia, then yes, logically that would mean that basically everything he did in office is effectively null and void. We have to go back and analyze it, and everything is called into question.
Not likely, Matt. I don't think they're going to allow that level of chaos to come in, but it's going to be an interesting week to see how the Democrats shore up Biden's response to this. Carolyn Levitt is, of course, having to deal with that in the communication department. So what does she say?
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but we all know that to be true, as evidenced by his disastrous debate performance against President Trump during the campaign. I digress on that. But the president was raising the point that, did the president even know about these pardons? Was his illegal signature used without his consent or knowledge? And that's not just the president or me raising those questions, Caitlin. According to the New York Post, there are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the President of the United States autograph without his consent.
Biden is on the record talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden White House.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Well, you're a reporter. You should find out. You know what strikes me is implied in this whole thing, including what Trump said there in the hallway, is don't forget that once you've got a change of administration, you have this change of allegiances all over the place. Not everybody that is in the White House during an administration is a full partisan left-wing, in the money candidate, meaning there could be some witnesses there. There could be some office people. There could be some secretaries. There could be some people that are moderates going, listen, I'm going to tell you something. I was there. And I was there when he discovered that these pardons were signed, and he asked to get a copy of them so he could see what it was that was published. That's all it takes to compromise the argument. And I have a suspicion that they're not doing this just based upon Trump saying, I found an Autopen thing. Okay, well, we're going to nullify everything Biden did. I think they have a little bit of inside information on this, and they're not revealing it right now. They're keeping their powder dry. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Kennedy files and what's in them. What if you could live younger and stronger for longer? Is it possible to reactivate your body's internal repair system the way God designed it? Are you or someone you love struggling with body degeneration and in search of some kind of an effective solution? At Level 10 Matrix, we believe that the power that created you can heal you, and that healing and regeneration are already encoded right inside your DNA. And whether it's due to injury or illness or aches or chronic pain or lack of energy, mental or physical decline, or the brain fog that seems to come with the aging process itself. If you want to revitalize your life now, then call 1-800-361-2270 or go to level10matrix.com now to claim your complimentary ebook, to schedule your complimentary no-obligation, no-pressure consultation. Remember, looking and feeling younger never gets old. So if you want to revitalize your life now, then call 1-800-361-2270 today. Well, you know, it's going to be very interesting watching how the weaponized judicial system is going to team up. And, you know, if you guys are a praying people, which I'm counting on you to be, I'm telling you, the warfare, the legal warfare, is where this thing is going to get. This is where they try to take Trump out in the courts, and they're trying to take Trump out again in the courts. It's like, man, it's so frustrating. But it is what it is. The judge has ordered. Now, he's not backing down. You know, this judge that Trump said ought to be impeached and all this stuff? Well, he's not backing down. He's fighting back. He's got the whole apparatus of all of the Democrat institutions, funders, and legal demons behind him. He's saying, I want logs. I'm going to find somebody guilty of disobeying a judge's orders. And so he's going to try to prove that at some point that airplane took off and it was defying that judge's orders, and he is going to assert, he didn't care if he's a local district judge, he will control the White House, because that's the nature of lawlessness. And by the way, you don't know about the Supreme Court. I just got this breaking news. Let me give you something which really kind of freaked me out when I saw it. Chief Justice Roberts has just pushed back on President Trump discussing the impeachment of judges. And what does he say? Hey, for more than 2 years, or for more than, let me get back here, for more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. So the normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. In other words, there's a judicial system. We don't just impeach judges. Well, this is what's happening in America. We have judges that are ruling based on the fear of man. That's what the Bible talks about. Or they're ruling based on the favor of man. And in Washington, you don't get invited to the parties, and you're embarrassed after a while if you're living there with your wife and kids and family. If you're affiliated with a Trump administration, then you're not going to be as comfortable as when you're with the 90% of the population that all are Democrats. So it's just a psychological reality. That's why in some countries you're removed from the city, where the Supreme Court decisions are made. Like they fly the judges out in some places. They live in a separate, totally secure city of their own, and then they go into court, but they come out into that city. They're not under the pressure of the political establishment. So I want you to see Steve Miller, the White House, I guess he's the White House legal counsel. Classic debate. You're going to see a CNN reporter arguing with him over whether or not we're at war with Venezuela. I want you to see the badgering technology that these guys use. Check this out.
So I'll answer yours and you'll answer mine. Under the terms of the statute, Tren de Aragua is an alien enemy force that has come here as detailed at length in the proclamation at the direction of the Venezuelan government. The statute says that a president has the ability to repel an invasion or predatory incursion that is directed by a foreign
state
government.
or a government, right? Are they a state or a government?
This would be, yes, it is documented. The TDA was sent by the Venezuelan government in the proclamation. And here's an even more important point. Under the Constitution, who makes that determination? A district court judge elected by no one, or the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy? The president and the president alone makes a decision of what triggers that determination.
So do you then think we
statute.
are actually at war with Venezuela, the nation state of Venezuela?
You're not hearing
Are we
me,
at
and you're not
war with
understanding me.
Venezuela?
Read the statute. Alien Enemies Act, 1798. It says if a predatory incursion is perpetrated by a foreign government. So it lists three qualifying actions. It could be an act of war.
It does say in the very beginning there has to be a declared war against a nation or a state. That's what it says.
No, wrong. Look up the statute. It's on my account on social media.
That's actually where we found it
see
earlier.
Yes. It says, or a predatory incursion, or an invasion. The statute delineates 3 criteria.
Okay, you can stop it there.
The alien enemy.
His point is this. There's 3 criteria, but I just want you to see the nature of media. She isn't interested in clarifying what the conditions are for the Alien and Sedition Act to be invoked. That is the removal of a predatory incursion. that is initiated by a foreign country. She goes into, so is Venezuela at war? Are we at war with Venezuela? That's where it takes such skill to be able to just, like he does, deflect and move on. But Tren de Aragua and MS-13, what bothers me most is the realization that Maduro might have authorized them to just go ahead and let them go. Give them the green light. They're doing business in the United States. They're setting up drug networks. And how much of that money gets kicked back to the home? And which is why I suppose Trump didn't send them back to Venezuela, which is where they were sent from. He sends them to El Salvador, where Bukele is being paid to take them, which sends a message to the cartel that you're not going to get returned back to your condo in Venezuela. You're actually going to go into a maximum security prison. Puts a kind of chill on the enthusiasm of everybody. So this is kind of some brass knuckle tactics going on here. Let's jump over to the Kennedy subject. I know I've got some interest here in my office on that. Trump announces the JFK files while he's invading the high holy hill of Kennedy Center, which is the sanctuary and high priesthood of the liberal elite in Washington. He's going there to have his first board meeting, which is committing a defiling of their sanctuary. But Trump is claiming the Kennedy Center back for America out of the hands of the left. Listen to what he announces.
But while we're here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this. And I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard. And that's going to be released tomorrow. We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files, and that would be tomorrow. Do you have anything else to add to that, Carolyn? So that's a big announcement. They've been waiting for that for decades. Then I said during the campaign I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word. So tomorrow you have the JFK files. What time will they be released? Tomorrow afternoon. Okay.
Have you seen what's in the files? Have you read them?
I've heard about them.
What's the interesting?
It's going to be very interesting.
All right, let's hold it right there. So we have a little bit of opinion in my office here. I have my son, Carl. I have Chelsea here.
Hi.
So I'm when asked by them, what do I think is going to come out of the Kennedy files? And I said, I don't know. I've heard all the weird theories. I have no idea where the paper trail, unredacted, is going to go. Carl, you look like you're working with that. Beard's really come in on you quite ferociously since I saw you 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
I've been working really hard at it.
Well, okay, so you're tell me about what you think is going to come out.
Well, for a long time, a number of us have believed that there was a mob connection with the Kennedy family. For those of you who don't know, the first Kennedys that came over here were bootleggers. They were rum runners. That was where they got a lot of their initial money. And then once Prohibition went away, they started trying to make it legal as far as the dissemination of the alcohol they were buying from overseas. And that ended up interfering with some of the rackets, especially in the Chicago mob. So the connections between Joe Kennedy, JFK, and RFK's RFK Jr.'s grandfather. He was the rum runner. He was the bootlegger. He was the one who had these connections. And so some of us speculate that it was because that JFK was saying that he was going to be releasing certain files, he was going to be making certain things public, that this was in the disinterest of the organized crime units, especially in Chicago, Illinois. And so they were firing warning shots at the Kennedys saying, basically, if you continue to push forth against our family, we're going to attack yours. So that's what I'm expecting to find.
All right, so I'm going to go to Chelsea in a second. Now, my recollection of this, while we're all dusting off our years of conspiracy research, is that Kennedy had worked with the crime family in Chicago because of their, early affiliation, to make sure that they got the vote in Illinois, which, by the way, the Chicago vote was what gave Kennedy the presidency, because he and Nixon were almost tied, but the Electoral College tilted when when Illinois' vote came in through Chicago. Mayor Daley, it was believed, was working with the organized crime unions, the unions were working close with the criminal families. And so they felt when Bobby Kennedy, who's JFK's brother, went after the racketeering and went after the families from Louisiana to Chicago, they felt betrayed by Joe, and they felt that this was an absolute betrayal of their getting him elected. So, Chelsea, do you think we're going to see the organized crime connection, or what?
I think that it was the CIA. Because
what?
I think the theory that it was the CIA is more plausible to me, and my explanation is not as long-winded as Carl's, but
harsh.
I know, sorry. But your beard is like really giving to conspiracy theory land.
Yeah.
So one thing I've heard was that he was wanting to shut down the CIA, and he was trying to get rid of them. He wasn't in favor of them. He didn't like them. And so next thing you know, he's dead. So I think it might have more to do with the CIA, or it was the CIA and the mob.
Bum, bum, bum,
Or it
bum,
could be
All right, now we're going to... I'm going to go over a little bit of this segment. This isn't an RAV segment. This is going to be a podcast with Lance segment.
Well, we'll finish on Rav, but if you want to watch this episode on the podcast, go to lancewallnau.com/podcast. There you can find Lance on every single platform imaginable, and you can look for this
then we will
episode.
make it an RAV segment here with Real America's Voice. But I just want to point out in the 30 seconds we have remaining that my recollection of the CIA connection is that because of the disastrous Bay of Pigs experience that Kennedy was embarrassed by.
Oink, oink.
And the CIA and the military felt that they were betrayed by Kennedy because he didn't, as vigorously as they had hoped, go after Cuba on the Bay of Pigs. He felt embarrassed by their intelligence fiasco. And so he was going to start the dismantling of their agency. And so they worked with a Louisiana crime family in some way. That could be the Jack Ruby connection that kills off the CIA asset, who was Oswald. This will be interesting. We're going to put our AI to work on those 80,000 pages to see what comes up within the next 24 hours. All right, let's keep going with our podcast audience for just about 3 or 4 minutes. I want to talk to you guys about what we ran out of time with Real America's Voice, especially about the redacting. I'm not so sure what's going to come up. What do you guys think?
Trump says there's not going to be a whole lot of redactions. There's going to be thousands and thousands of pounds of black ink on redactions.
The only redactions, well, we'll find out. But I mean, the only redactions that I imagine, and there will be, I'm sure, because there might be people still living. There might be agency, information there. But what I think is you guys maybe don't know is that this originally assassination could have happened in Chicago. Kennedy had a trip to Chicago that was a couple of weeks earlier.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And a similar scenario was prepared for a shooting there, and for some reason it was interrupted. But you know how there's so much documentary footage on this stuff.
Of course.
But it shows that there was a CIA in-house setup in Chicago. But there again, it's a mob city, so. But the conditions were all right, but it ended up getting shifted down to Dallas. But Carl, you point out that the whole trajectory of Kennedy, whether he gets shot and he lurches back, how could the bullet have been from behind and he goes back? That's part of always was
right. Also, if you look at the entrance and the exit wounds, the exit wound on the type of ballistic that was, or on the bullet that was fired, always leaves a wider exit than an entrance wound, because what it does is the bullet goes in.
Expands.
Yeah, exactly. It basically explodes out from whatever it goes into, and then the debris and all that stuff ends up flying outward. So for anybody who gets shot from the back of the head, they would immediately lean forward just from the recoil, right? From the impact of it. If you watch the video footage of Kennedy, that is not the case. He leans back first. So just that on its face, looking at the ballistics, looking at the trajectory, looking even just the basic logic of it, nobody who gets shot in the back is going to lean towards the thing that hit them. They're going to lean away from it. So that's just, those of us who are paying attention, and we have the benefit of hindsight.
Chelsea, any theory on that?
I just remember in high school when we were learning about it, the teacher was teaching about it, and he put it on loop for like the entire 30-minute lecture, and I'm still traumatized from that. So I don't know. I really don't know if it was on the knoll, if it was in the building. To me, that doesn't matter. What matters to me is who did it, and I think it was the CIA.
Well, the book depository was behind him, so I mean the area of the area that they're inquisitive about is kind of important, in my opinion, as far as where the book
argument
came from.
for the or for Oswald being not the patsy but the shooter is the fact that he shot an officer in a theater afterwards. I mean, he didn't behave like a man who was not guilty. He knew something had happened. He goes into a theater. He shoots at a police officer who's trying to arrest him. So, and he also did another strange thing. He attempted an assassination of a judge in Dallas and shot through his window in the city here. So
allegedly,
and missed him. I mean that. I don't know if that's alleged. I think that was kind of established.
That's what the deep state says.
So,
as far as the record
so you're
is.
saying even the record of all that is
absolutely.
He tried to shoot a judge. He's irrational. He was.
Yeah. Well, also, I think it's important to bear in mind that, although it's a separate conversation, it is a part of it because it was around the civil rights movement. The federal government was found guilty and culpable in the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. We know that from the Supreme Court. That's a matter of public record.
Well, that'll be another. I guess that's another set of documents that'll come out.
Well, it's already come out. Yes, Chelsea, I see a hand.
I do have another theory that it was the seed oils.
It was
seed
who?
oils.
Thank you, Babylon Bee. CIA files reveal JFK was killed by seed oils.
I cannot believe it.
And I thought this was so funny, and I worked it in.
Can you explain to the audience why it's funny? That's totally worth it.
I had to have it explained to me, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't know that seed oils have become a hot issue with millennials in terms of what's killing people.
This is like public enemy number one. I mean, seed oils are basically engine lubricant. So your canola oil, your vegetable oil, this is one of the biggest things RFK is going after. And so it was just funny.
Full circle. That's why he wants to take him out, because they killed his dad.
Well, okay, well, his uncle.
Sure.
And his dad.
Well, seed oil is a big killer.
Get your history right, Carl.
That's about all the subject matter expertise I can summon from the studio here. We'll try this experiment again after we've had the 80,000 pages analyzed and see if this team came anywhere near close to being accurate in terms of what we come up with. And what if we come up with nothing? Wouldn't that be a big disappointment? But we're going to be back again tomorrow because I've already seen the outline of what we're going to be covering, and I can promise you it's going to be a lot more definitive than what we just did right now. God bless you, and we'll see you again later.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.